Welcome. We're going to be talking today about something called emotional freedom technique. And I'm Rich Enrich at Apositiva, and this is my glorious partner who actually owns Apositiva. So we're going to be talking about what we'll be covering for our students on this weekend, the power of EFT, the fact that it's been around for over 40 years and been tested by hundreds of thousands of people. And it's something that should be in, I think, all the therapists' repertoire. So welcome, Kat.
Well, thank you, Rich. It's nice to see you. You know, there's something we're going to be sharing with our students in just a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I know that everyone is coming from someplace. They're probably coming back from holiday because, we just got through with the holiday season, or maybe they were traveling on the road. I myself just zoomed home from a South Portland Business Association meeting.
Zooming from Seattle the day before that.
Yeah, I just actually got back from Seattle too, and I was up in Glacier, so it was quite a trip. So I've been doing a lot of Zooming. But one of the things I do know is that sometimes we leave our consciousness and our presence in another place. And in just a moment, we're going to be showing you a very special hello greeting that's done in Africa when people come together, basically, tribes and people, so that they can become more present with each other. And when it comes to using emotional freedom technique or really doing any of these therapeutic processes, we do want to be more present, right?
It's good to be present. So
it's good to be present.
now we're going to set this up to show this good little slideshow first.
Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Now,
and
if I click on this right there, is that the right point?
No, you have got to go to share. We have got to do a share. You want me to do that?
Oh, well,
yes,
I'm also learning this over here. She does it, so let's see where the share goes. Oh, she hit the button over there. That's where share came up. I see it now. Okay, let me see if I can find share. All right, very good.
There.
Okay, so she's sharing that. It's emotional freedom technique. And she said something about a greeting.
Yes.
So where did this greeting come from?
This is a greeting from Africa. It's the way that we greet and honor. And there are a couple different sections to this, and it begins with one person acknowledging the other person by actually looking at them. And we'll demonstrate this for you. But here are the lines so that you know. One person looks at the other and really deeply appreciates that they came from a long journey. And I'll say to the other partner in greeting, I see you. And he will sit there for a moment and he'll appreciate me. And then he'll say the next line, which is?
Just say the next line, and he's going to come back to and go, then she sees me, so I'm going to say, I am here.
So that means that he's present. And knowing that he's present, and we now acknowledge that, he then looks at me and says,
it's my turn to also greet her and tell her the same, I see you.
Whereas I go and I say, it's good to be seen. And then you can embrace or you can honor the other person.
In Africa, some would hug, some would hold things with it, some do not touch, but you can make the greeting, and the idea is to acknowledge the other human being is important on the planet, and that for that moment of time, you're both present with each other.
That's right.
Umbuto.
Umbuto, right.
So I see you, I am here, I see you, it's good to be seen, and we will practice that this weekend. So you'll get a chance to greet each person there and to have a chance to really see them and allow it for a moment to take it in. Now, I could tell a story about when Kat used to be back and was teaching classes with remedial fifth graders, and how one boy was incredibly shy and couldn't hardly talk. And she remembers this now, but he really had a hard time expressing himself in class. And she taught this to these people. And at a break, when they were actually filming these kids and putting them on television, this one boy ran up to her and he brought his father over and he says, Dad, he says, this is the lady who taught us this, and let me show you. And he turned to his dad and he says, I see you. And his dad turned to him and says, I am here. And his dad said to him, I see you. And he went, it is good to be seen. And literally he was in tears because he had such a connection to his father. So it's a powerful greeting, and it works even with children as well.
That's very touching. That is very touching.
So
should we show? Let's go on to learn all about emotional freedom technique, which is also known as EFT. And tell us the story.
EFT, and sometimes people don't even know what the initials are, and they just know it's a tapping process because they've heard of it or they've seen other people have done it. So once upon a time, there was a person who was in a really bad place. They got scared. They were stuck. They were angry. They were sad, afraid. They had an emotional flood of feelings. So a guy came along and he said, tap on it, tap, 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 tap. And then the flooding feelings went away. And EFT saved the day.
Yay!
So yes. So EFT is a version of acupuncture or acupressure without needles. So it's an easy way of doing something to help a person get in touch with the energy systems of their body. And in doing that part of it, to change what was so disruptive in that energy system to something that is either neutral or just completely gone. And so that's what we'll be working on, is EFT saves the day. And at the end, they did what?
Tapping ending. They had a very happy ending.
Yes.
In the process of going through a trauma with someone where they're tapping out this issue, you'll be learning about how we really focus in on it, specifically what it is, and even what the level of energy is. In the end, we say they lived happily ever after because the flooded feelings are gone. And this is where so many people really feel very, very challenged because they need to get beyond this one point.
And the nice thing about this, what Kat's saying too, is that not only do they feel really, really good in the moment and they're able to change some feelings that really had them stuck or flooded them, but they can take this technique with them. And then later on, if something else shows up, or heaven forbid, if this one still wasn't completely cleared and comes back a little bit, they have the tools to do it and to do it very quickly. For most people, they can do it in a matter of a few minutes. So, and the more you do it, the easier and the faster it happens.
Well, wait.
What happened?
This is a lot of information. What happened? How did they do it?
Well, let's take a look.
Okay.
First, they got themselves a puppy with big eyes. That's all.
Well, that's a puppy in trauma.
It's a puppy in trauma.
Right.
With his tongue stuck out and his little scared. Okay.
Yeah, because this is the EFT
it's
basics.
An EFT basic
We have to
class.
start with
Okay,
basic
so,
trauma.
Okay, so
Or flooded
got the
emotions.
basic flooded emotion trauma. And then after you get that, then you can go to the part where they ended up living happily ever after. Or you can go back to floods, or you can go through that and come back with starting with feelings.
Okay, all right.
And if they had some feelings, it might be good to kind of maybe have them notice it for a moment.
Could be.
And even maybe notice where in their body they were feeling it. And gosh, how would they know how much they had? Maybe they could measure it.
You know, I'll go think about the measuring. I'll be right back.
Okay. So we can think about measuring those feelings. And as we think about measuring it, then there's some pieces in there that my partner is looking for. And did I run by one or something? So as we start with the feelings, there's going to be a way to measure it, which we'll be talking about. And as they're looking at that part and measuring it, they'll be measuring it on the scale of 0 to 10, 10 being high. So how much of that one is actually in their process right now. Then there's going to be some things we'll teach them, basic points that they'll be tapping on. And there's a sequence to them. There's a couple of them that are important. One will be the one they start with. And for most, you see in the picture of the hand, is on the lower part of the hand, and it's called the karate chop point. And as they tap on that karate chop point, and she's got a cute little guy, she's got to tap on his little.
We have a friend. This is a friend that may actually have some issues.
It looks like he got some issues. He's got spots.
Well,
can we clear spots with this process?
Well, you know, that's a question that we may actually want to answer. So, you know, of course, there's a measurement type of thing. You know, how do you measure what's going on? Well, certainly we've got this wonderful little frog here who seems to have all kinds of emotions, you know, going on right now. I mean, he's got spots all over him.
Hey, Spots, what's happening? What are you feeling now, bud? What's going on?
It's definitely kind of rough.
So you're feeling a little scared?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, gosh. And if you were feeling scared, if you were to just take a moment and just, can you remember a specific time when you really felt scared? Well, you're feeling something now. Okay. Does this connect it to a specific time you felt really scared? Well, it is. Well, if you could just kind of take a moment and just kind of scan your whole body, and a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being high, how much of that scaredness are you feeling right now? How much of that energy does it have? You're saying it's about a 7? Well, okay. Very good. Thank you. Then there's going to be a particular sequence that we'll be using, and the sequence will look like this. So as we've found out what that sequence is and how many times it is, in this case, it's a 7 on their scale of how much energy they're feeling.
Oh, but actually, this is a sequence of the tapping part. We want to talk about the energy.
Well, we're going to get, well, we did 0 to 10.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. Let's step back for just a second because we want to be really clear about this frog thing because, I mean, this can actually be really important for you to get. And let's go ahead and go into the stop share for a moment. Rich, if you can go up and click that button to stop the share. And just bring this back into a conversation. See the red button? There we go.
There it is. Okay.
So in the process of when a person is going through emotional freedom technique, a person comes in with a particular challenge. Now, it's a flooded emotion that we're dealing with here, but that challenge could be anything from fear, it could be they're feeling stuck, it could be very angry.
They could have a pain in some part of their body.
They could have a pain. And one of the things that the originator of this process, Gary Craig, said, is he said, whenever somebody comes in with something, if you're not sure if it would work, go ahead and try it. Because it doesn't involve any drugs. And for most people, it's really effective. And you can use it with people no matter what their ages are, because even children can learn this. So when we're thinking about a flooded emotion or something like that, let me see if I can kind of like start out with my example with Jen, maybe one time.
Sure.
My daughter had contacted me via phone, and there was an emergency that came up. And when I was in the car at the time, I was feeling really happy. I was excited. I was on my way home. And my partner, Rich, it was his birthday. And I had these very expensive theater tickets, and I had waited for this wonderful opportunity to take him out to dinner and to take him out to, I think it was
Twisted.
Was it Twisted? Mm-hmm. Yeah, about the Wizard of Oz, the witches. And they were so expensive. It was such a treat, and I was so looking forward to it. And I was about maybe 10 minutes from home. And when I got the phone call, my daughter said, "Mom, can you come and pick up the kids? There's an emergency." And instantly, I could just feel the blood leaving my face. And I can hear her voice coming through the car. And I said, "What emergency is happening?" And she said, "Well, you need to come and get the kids. There's an emergency right now." I said, "All the kids?" At the time, right now she has 8, but she had 6 at the time. And she said, "Yeah, you have to come pick them up right now. I'm sorry, I can't give you more information, but could you please do that?" And, you know, if somebody calls you and they have something that's quite an emergency like that, and she doesn't usually pull it, you know it's something important. I said, "Okay." So
and it's your grandkids.
I said, "Okay, we'll take care of it." So I hang up, and I'm feeling real upset because I realize I've got to do something with my grandchildren, and I love them. But this man, I've been waiting to do this for a couple of months, and I'm really distraught. So I'm driving the car, and while I'm noticing my feelings that are rising, I think to myself, okay, so what am I feeling? I'm feeling frustration and anger, and it's a 10 on a scale of 10 being high and 0 being none. So as I'm driving, I'm using a portion of the tapping process, which you're going to learn here, while I'm driving, just simply tapping and saying, even though I'm frustrated and I'm angry because I have to pick up the kids and I can't take my partner off to see the play, I deeply and completely love and appreciate myself. And as 10 minutes go by, I calmed down enough so that by the time I got home, I could get my son, we could go pick up the kids. And I turned the tickets over to my neighbor, who was a friend of mine, Gail. And Gail and Rich went off to the theater, and they had a wonderful time for his birthday. And all evening, I was calm. If I had any emotions come up, I was able to use it once again, and nobody knew what I was doing. But this is what you're going to be learning, and it's one of many different examples of how to use it. Yeah.
So several things that you just heard, for example. Is it you can also do it with yourself. So one of our NLP presuppositions, if you remember, is what's possible for others is possible for me. So here's something that showed up with it. Because she had this handy tool handy, she was able to go ahead and do that. And there's a particular sequence that we'll be learning that you're doing with part of it. And you're actually able to notice, like your barometer, you're able to notice as the things begin to change and as the energy of it begins to come down to a point where either it's completely neutral or it's very, very bearable and is so different than where it was before. So it's a pretty powerful process. And it was designed, as the title said, originally around emotions, but it covers so much more than just emotions.
Yep. Pain, confidence, even discipline. I mean, there's just like a whole bunch of things. But what we'd like to do is first of all our students are able to look at the package of information that we sent, which is going to give a really good explanation. And we will actually be going over this on the weekend that's coming up. So tonight is to give you kind of like a quick presentation of how it works and a demonstration so that you can step into the place that you can start to see this happening. Well, look at your shirt. Aren't you doing something
I'm just
fun?
doing some sparkly stuff up here.
Yeah,
All right.
are. You must be very magical.
Well, shall we share the rest with them?
Sure. Let's go down to share the rest of it. Okay, yeah. And once again,
All right.
Here we go.
So we're back to sequence.
So now this is actually the sequence. This is actually the process for how to do it.
Okay, this sequence covers everything except what the very first step was. And the first step we talked about back here. The first step is down, you see in the lower part of the hand, is called the karate chop spot. So in the lingo, it's literally called the psychological reversal spot. If you use this spot and you'll tap on it, we'll give you the magic phrase you're going to be using. This sets up the body to then accept the tapping you'll be doing, to then begin to diminish all of that energy that's there by doing those particular meridian spots that we'll be doing. As you can see, the little arrow on top of the guy's head will be starting then after this point at the top of the head, and we'll work through that sequence we'll be showing you in just a second. So just kind of remember that on the bottom of the hand there, the soft part of the hand, which is sometimes called the karate spot. You can do it with one hand or both hands or on either hand. It doesn't make any difference which one you tap on. And generally you'll tap, as the next slide says, about 7 to 10 times, or as many as you want. So first of all, for the person, while you're there with them, you want to believe that the person can make the change. So as it says, you're going to be holding the space that they can make that change. So your belief can affect their belief and what's possible with it. Now, as Gary Craig will tell you, one of the things that I think is fun with him, he said they don't have to believe in this process for it to work. They can even be skeptical of it, and it'll work, providing they just do the sequence. They do the process. And if they do it, and I've had this tested. I've had some people come in who like, oh my God, this is woo-woo. It's like, but they actually went ahead and did the process, and they noticed in the case of one of them, their emotions shifted dramatically. In the case of another one, it had a specific set of pain in her body that she couldn't get out and walk and do this thing she needed to do to drop weight, and she did it. And even though she didn't believe in this stuff at all, she came in 3 weeks later talking about that her knees were no longer hurting her lower back was doing fine. And even though she didn't believe in it, she was still doing it. So here's the sequence. As I said, you'll be tapping 7 to 10 times on each point, and then you'll be doing the remainder phrase, a reminder phrase actually, remainder phrase on it for doing the three of them. So the first one you tap on, as it said over here, is you'll be tapping on top of the head. So right there on top of the head, you got a flat spot, you're right in front of that. You'll be tapping on it, and you'll be tapping about 7 to 10 times, and we'll do 3 rounds of them every time we do it. So I'm just going to go through the sequence first. We'll worry about the verbiage and stuff later.
Hey, before you start, could I check in on something?
Sure, what's that?
Okay, so as you're all watching this, as I mentioned, sometimes this is Rich's first time of just kind of running the whole kit and caboodle, and I'm just going to double check on something on our screen. So bear with me for just a moment as I'm going to do a check-in here to make sure that something is actually happening. And did you move it?
Yeah, well.
And basically all I really want to do is, I'm going to stop the share, so go ahead and smile nice. Okay, I'm going to stop the share, and sure, everything looks like it's lined up beautifully. That's absolutely wonderful. Rich, would you be willing to do just kind of show people, how these different spots are right before we go back to the screen? So as we're looking at
I can. That's what the slide had up there so beautifully, was to show you what each one of these spots were.
Yeah.
So after we've done this karate spot, and this is what sets it up for these spaces to work, and we do 3 rounds of this one too, we'll talk about later.
3 rounds.
And then the first spot is going to be on that flat spot, right in front of the flat spots, right on top of the crown of your head. and we'll be tapping it roughly 7 to 10 times, and there's something we'll be saying. The next one is you've got spots right here on both, right above your eyebrows on either side, and you can tap on one side, the other side, or both, and it works no matter which way you do it.
Now, exactly where is that, like the inside of the eyebrow?
It's right there on the eyebrow. So if you can see my fingers. So it's right there on the eyebrow, right on the edge of the eyebrow. So the actual spot itself, which you're not going to tap because these are very forgiving, the actual spot is right there inside the corner of the eye. But you're not going to be tapping there. These just the vibrations is all it needs up there. Mm-hmm. And they're very forgiving, even if you're just a little bit off and stuff on it, it still pretty well gets it.
Does it matter if I use one finger or two?
You can use your whole hand if you want to.
Oh.
So you can do 1 finger, 4 fingers, your whole hand. You can smack yourself, but be gentle. It's a process. It's just exercise. It's not hurting yourself. So the next one is over here beside your eye, right here about where the bone is, right almost where your eye is, but on the side. And you can again tap one side, either side, and or both. A lot of people, I tap both. A lot of people tap one. It doesn't make any difference. After that, the next one would be right on the bone right underneath the eye, so right there on top of that bone. As you're tapping in that spot right below the eye, same thing, about 7 to 10 times. Then right below that, right there's a little crease right underneath your nose.
Right here.
You'll be tapping right there underneath your nose.
Got it. Yep.
Right there underneath the nose.
Uh-huh.
And you can again tap with one finger. You can tap with both sides, however you want to do it, but that one spot. The next spot is that little crease right underneath your lip, right above your chin, so right there. So be tapping on that spot. And again, there's something we're saying as we're doing all these things.
7 to 10 taps.
7 to 10 taps, and there's only 2 more to go. So we have this little V next to our collarbones, and right as you go to the collarbones, you go right below the collarbones just a little bit, and you find a little indentation, like maybe ½ inch to 1 inch down. So you don't need to go all the way down, just barely right below your collarbones right there. And you'll be tapping on one side or both. And as you do, it even sounds a little funny when you're talking there. So you can get it, or you can just use one hand like I do. Now the last one, and that's kind of the fun one, it's like for the girls it's easy, the women it's easy because you just go where your bra strap is. For the guys, it's about 3 or 4 inches down, but it's like you're going to tap underneath your arm, and you can tap down one arm, the other arm, both arms. You can tap with the chicken touch. So there's all kinds of ways to tap it. No matter how you do it, as long as you're hitting those spots, it's good. Now sometimes, like mine right now is sore. So if these happen to be sore, you can go just beyond it and tap on the flat spot right back here. And it's still tapping in the same place. You're still vibrating that area. These are all meridian spots. And once you've tapped one round of it, then you're going to go up, start up here, and do a second round. You're going to go up, start again, third round. Now, if you go to the third round, then what you'll do is you'll just stop for a moment, take in a nice deep breath, hold it for a moment, and then slowly let it out. And then we'll be checking that 0 to 10 scale we had, and we'll notice how much, if any, of that 0 to 10 still remains. And if there's a certain amount that remains, we'll go back and do some more tapping. If there's down to 2 or less, then there's something else we'll do.
Well, you said something, a meridian. What is a meridian? So
in acupuncture, the meridians, there's actually meridian systems that run all the way through the body. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a oriental doctor that does this or an acupuncturist, so I can't do justice to explaining them. But according to Oriental medicine, what our whole body was about when we were born was about our chi, our energy. So we had a birthright of having a healthy, flowing energy. Mm-hmm. Now, something happens, comes along the way, and it disrupts that energy. So we get hurt. Somebody yells at us. We get in an accident. We lose a job. We go through a divorce. Somebody dies. I mean, any number of things can be there. And whatever that is, all of a sudden, that clean energy that you were supposed to be having naturally wasn't working. So a lot of what they were doing with Oriental medicine and doing that was to try to recapture that healthy chi, and to then either balance it by collapsing out the negative energy and or disrupting it in such a way that now they could get back into that qigong and the other parts of it, other ways of breathing, and get the energy back in that ways. This is one that was actually developed originally by a guy named Roger Callahan in something called thought field therapy. And he's the grandfather of all these things. And he created this thought field therapy, which was very, very complex. I learned that one. And fortunately, while I was learning that, I found somebody that was also teaching EFT, which is Cat Admission, comes from Gary Craig. Mm-hmm. And Gary Craig when he was an engineer scientist, studied at Stanford, and he knew there was something majorly here, but it was too complex. So he found a way to streamline it, to bring it down so that all of us would have one simple process we could use on basically everything. And as she was mentioning, Gary would say something, well, will it work for this? And Gary would love to say it. He says, I don't know, try it. What do you got to lose? Except the problem. So try it. So that's what it was designed for originally, was to help you streamline it and get through it in a way that seems to work ultimately for almost everything.
Well, you know, it's interesting when you see it done, it can really make a big difference. And we definitely want to show you the steps again on the slide, but sometimes it's kind of fun to hear a story about, you know, how it works. So bear with us because Rich has probably got a couple of stories in between. Did you want to go back to the slides?
I got a bunch of stories. I plan on this weekend as we actually do this together, and we'll give you some more variations of it that you can do for it. And we might even tell some secrets like you can do this surrogate too, and do it for other people. But we'll tell you about that then.
And, you know, here's another thing that you might want to also know. For those people who have started watching some of our older DVDs and information from Gary Craig, we were certified using the EFT process quite a few years ago. And when we did it, it was, no, down at the bottom. See the little TV screen thing? Yeah, you're getting close.
Okay. Well, all right. And there we are.
Good job.
The basic points to top.
When we first learned EFT, it was done one way. And then it's been morphing and growing. So what Rich is teaching you is the process from when he went to the boot camp with Gary Craig and was updated with newer processes. So keep in mind that you could see older videos and you might see a tapping process and it's still okay, but the one he's showing you is the one he's recently learned.
Yeah, most of these dots you see on the screen on the hand, for example, the only one they use is the karate spot, even though the others are there and we can teach you those. But when I talked to Gary Craig and I talked to the advanced players that were up on the stage with him, none of them use that. They all have gone to streamlining it. They use a karate spot, and where you see the arrow on top where there's no little dot, they have added the part on the top of the head, and they find it works for everything that they used to be able to do all the other steps for. Also, the sore spots you see there are the same spot as the karate spot, so they don't use the sore spots anymore at all. They just use the karate spot, which is the same spot. So we have the basic points there. They can see where they are now, and we've demonstrated those. And as we walk through, just looking at the sequence, the sequence starts again on the top of the head, or, well, no, let's rewind back. First, the sequence is always going to be starting with that place on your hand.
Well, actually,
and it'll be the issue.
Actually, it starts with believing in the person.
Okay, so once we have helped the person to locate what their issue was, and we've told them we're going to be doing a process to help that, then we want to hold the space for them.
So what does it sound like when we do that, we do the issue thing? I mean, what does that sound like?
Well, after we've done the intake, and as we've done the intake with someone and they've come in and we've been talking with them and we've been figuring out what their challenge was, and they tell us that the one challenge, for example, they come in and let's say that their challenge right now is that they tend to get a little irritated or angry. And you can say, well, gee, can you remember a time where this was a problem for you? Remember a time where you felt irritated or angry?
So they have to get a specific time when they felt irritated.
It's useful to do that.
Okay.
And then we're going to get as much of it in the present moment as they can bring up.
Okay, so if I was remembering back to that time when, you know, maybe there was that situation that I mentioned, then you would ask me to go back to that time. So I would go back in my mind.
Well, if you came in and you had told me in your intake that this was something, it was, I'm going to use the word haunting you. It was a problem that wasn't going away and it was disruptive to you in some way, and that's what you would like to work on and clear. So let's see. Well, then let's take a look at that for a second. Can you remember that time? That specific time when you were in your car coming home and you got that phone call?
Yep, I can remember that time. Exactly.
So imagine, if you would now, just let yourself have as much of that remembrance as you can, as if it was happening to you again right now.
Oh man, I'm so frustrated. I feel sad. I want to cry. I want to scream.
Okay. So do me a favor. do it, just kind of scan your body. As you think about that issue right now as it's happening, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being high, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much of that energy do you have right now?
It feels like a 9.9.
9.9. Wow. Okay, got it. So then we ask them for that part, have them remember that time when it was, do the scaling, so we now know on a scale of 0 to 10 how much was there, and say, okay, if you would, so walking through the process, I'm going to ask you now if you can just kind of find a soft spot on the part of your hand.
Okay.
And if you would, we're going to be using this following phrase.
Okay.
The phrase will always be the same if we do anything else, but we're just going to change what the issue is.
Okay.
So the phrase will be, even though, and if you say it
Though.
out loud, good, excellent.
Even though.
I'm feeling really angry right now
I'm feeling really angry right now
about that phone call.
about that phone call.
I fully and completely
I fully and completely
love and accept myself anyway.
love and accept myself anyway.
So we're going to do 3 times. So even though I'm feeling really angry about that phone call,
Even though I'm feeling really angry about that phone call.
what did I say with the phone call? In the car.
In the car.
In the car. Okay. Okay. I fully and completely love and accept myself.
I fully and completely love and accept
That's
myself.
right. So what was it again?
Even though I felt angry when I got the phone call in the car, I deeply and completely and fully love and accept myself.
Wonderful. Excellent. Okay. Got it. And even if they change it just slightly and things are, it's all fine because the words they don't have to be perfect as long as they got that intent. So now if you
Can I
would,
stop tapping?
so you can, okay, now if you would, I'm going to ask you to take your hand and I'm going to ask you to go up here right on top of your head.
Okay.
Now we don't have to say the whole phrase this time. We're just going to say feeling angry.
So just
Okay,
one,
so if you would, go ahead and tap and then say feeling angry.
feeling angry.
Okay. So as you're feeling that sense of where it was, 9.9, right now you're feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Okay, good. Now, if you would, right there on those by your eyebrows, so you can do one side and or both. So if you would, just go ahead and say it again. Feeling angry.
Feeling angry. Feeling angry.
Very good.
Feeling angry.
Good. And you can just say it once or you can say it more than once and that's fine.
Okay.
Good. Now, right beside your eyes, right here on the bone.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Now, if you would, say it again.
Feeling angry.
Okay.
Feeling angry.
Very good.
Should I be looking at you when I say this?
You can look at me or
Or
look
should I
away.
look fully ahead or
I would look away. It's
Okay.
probably easier.
look away? Okay.
Now, and right below your eyes, right here in that bone.
Okay.
Excellent. So if you would, go ahead. Feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Very good.
Feeling angry.
Okay. Then underneath your nose, feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
Good. Then underneath this little crease right below your lip, do it again. Feeling
Feeling
angry.
angry.
Feeling angry.
Feeling angry. I remember that. I remember feeling angry.
Yeah. Well, okay. And then you got this little this spot right there, and
This-
right below your collarbone.
Right below my
Where's your
collarbone.
collarbone?
Okay.
Right there, little,
Right
and
there.
right there. Feeling angry.
Feeling angry. Feeling
That's right,
angry.
feeling angry.
Yeah, feeling really
That's right,
angry. And
angry.
disappointed.
And disappointed. Yeah.
Yeah, feeling angry.
And
and
notice how it all of a
disappointed.
sudden shifted a bit. There was
Yeah.
not just anger, it was disappointment, which is a little less than anger.
Well,
Okay, so-
disappointed. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
she couldn't help it.
Yeah.
It wasn't her fault.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you would, go ahead. So feeling angry.
Feeling angry and
Feeling
disappointed.
angry and
Yeah.
disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So now back up here again. This time just feeling angry.
Feeling angry.
All right. Now in your eyes, feeling disappointed.
Feeling disappointed.
And beside your eyes, and I was angry.
And I was angry.
And beneath your eyes, and I was disappointed.
And I was disappointed. I felt really sad for her too.
Below your nose, feeling angry.
Feeling angry and disappointed.
Below your nose, and sad for her too.
And sad for her too.
So we can go with whatever they give us.
Really feel
Feeling,
for her.
or, yeah, feeling for her, feeling sorry.
I
And
feel
I'm
for
feeling-
me too because I
feeling
have
for
to
me
miss.
too,
I have to
yeah.
miss the theater,
Yeah.
so I'm feeling sad for
And
her.
sometimes you're angry.
And sometimes I'm angry.
And sometimes stuff happens. So love your
Sometimes stuff happens.
Yeah. And I was angry.
And I was angry.
And I was disappointed.
I was really disappointed. I was sad. I had those tickets for a long time. I was
Yeah.
disappointed.
And I was sad for her.
I was sad for her, and I wanted to go to the theater with my
Yeah, I
partner,
wanted to go to-
Rich.
And I was sad.
Well, I was sad.
And I was angry.
I was really angry.
And I was disappointed.
You know, this is starting to like change.
Good. So good. If you would just relax your arms, take a deep breath in and hold it.
Oh,
Then just slowly let it out. Now check back in on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being high. How much of that phone call incident still remains for you? What's the energy level now?
seems like it's someplace around a 4.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now when we're doing it, what we're looking for is to find out if it goes down to a 2 or less. If it's a 3 or above, then we're going to repeat the process and just do it all over again. And we will practice this in class, doing more of it. But we would do it, and we're going to add one word, and we're going to add the word still. So if you would, find your soft spot right there. Okay. So even though I'm still feeling angry right now about that phone call,
even though I'm still feeling angry about that phone call,
I fully and completely
I fully and
love and
completely
accept myself anyway.
love and accept myself anyway.
So even though I'm still feeling angry about that phone call,
Even though I'm still feeling a little bit angry about the phone call,
a little bit angry, okay, I fully and completely love and accept myself.
I fully and completely love and accept myself.
So even though I'm still feeling a little bit angry,
Even though I'm still feeling a little bit angry,
I do fully and completely love and accept myself.
I do fully
And completely
and completely
love and accept myself.
love and accept myself.
Good. So, and hey, I was angry then.
Yeah, I was angry then.
Okay. And life happens.
Life happens,
And I was angry.
and I was angry,
And life happens.
and life happens.
And I was disappointed.
I was disappointed.
I wanted to go to the play.
Really did want to go to the play.
And I wanted to help my daughter.
I wanted to help my daughter too. I was
Yeah.
conflicted.
And they were my grandkids.
Yeah, they were. I love my grandkids. Yeah.
So even though I was angry,
Even though I was angry,
sometimes anger happens.
sometimes anger happens.
And I was angry then.
And I was angry then,
And this is now.
and this is now.
And I love my granddaughters.
I love my granddaughters
And
and
my
my
grandsons.
grandsons. Yeah.
Can't leave them out. Good. I love my grandkids.
I love all my grandkids, and I love my daughter.
Yeah. And you love your daughter. And so, yes, it was disappointing.
You know what? This doesn't even seem to be an issue anymore.
Huh. Okay.
I feel like I'm ready to have a drink of water or something.
We-
Is it possible? Can I have
Well, you
that?
know, why don't you? I think I see some tea sitting right over there, and I believe it has your name on it because it says friend. So you are the friend. who
Thank
says
you.
something.
Thank you. Yes.
Now,
And I guess drinking water is actually pretty
drinking water can be
important,
very handy. Now, normally they don't go drop from 4 completely zoom down to 0. They'll slide down to either 2 or 1 along the way. And there's one last thing that we'll do on there. Let's see if it's even on the next slide.
Oh, this is once again, if you want to go back to that, starting out where you are going in and checking the energy.
Oh, there you go.
You're asking them really to double check and find out if the energy has come from that 9.9 and dropping down to a 4, and if it's still above a number 2, then of course when you ask how is it for you right now, if they say it's a 3 or a 4, you want to really keep on giving them an opportunity to find out what it is. And the process itself of EFT is like a layered onion. You've got one emotion layered with another emotion. So it's possible that it could have changed from anger to
She went from
frustration,
anger to disappointment.
disappointment, and
And
sadness.
she had a little bit of sadness in her, and she was disappointed. And each one of those was a little less in strength than the original anger.
Mhm.
So sometimes they will go through more than one. And sometimes it'll just stick with the same one they have. But you notice down here at the very bottom, we were looking for that number 2. If it was below that number 2, there's a thing called an eye roll. And the eye roll is very simple. Just imagine holding your head steady and then slowly rolling your eyes down to the floor. And then once they reach the floor, then you would slowly go ahead and bring your eyes up to the ceiling. Still holding your head basically steady. And then bring your eyes back down to neutral. And then take another deep, full breath in and hold it. And then slowly let it out. Just imagine letting off the rest of that energy. And when you do that, you'll notice that most people drop another point or 2, and they generally are at 1 or 0 by then. So, but you're looking for that get down to the 2, and then you do the eye roll. So fun stuff.
That's the energy check.
That's the energy check-in. So presupposition of EST is based on energy. Our birthright is that healthy energy system that's part of our right to be on this planet. And sometimes things happen. I don't know if I should say this, but it used to be in my daughter's car. You should have shit happens.
We'll have to blank that out.
No,
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So it's like a disruption in the energy system, and it stops the flow, and that can create all kinds of tension in the muscles, in the emotions, the sense of the body function. And what we're really trying to help the person do is to get control of that.
Yeah. So we're re-remembering that experience. When I said, can you remember a time? Gee, can you remember a time when? And as they do, yes. Now imagine as if you could just let yourself be there again as fully as possible. Now, if it happened to, and as much as she was in her car, and most of them it was right there at a 10 or a 9.9 then, when they're in front of you, they may not be able to get it all the way up to that 9.9, but quite often they'll be up there at 7 or 8 or so. And then if they do that, great. You've given you all the energy you need to work with to do it there. If somebody gives you a piddling little 4, well, how do you feel about that? About 4? Oh, come on, is that the best you can do? I bet it was a whole lot more than that when it happened, wasn't it? And like, so come on, turn it up, bring it back where it was. It's amazing how often they'll bring it up another 2 or 3 spots. Like, and so now they've got more to let go of, and it feels more dramatic in their system when they do. So we're remembering the experience, dropping the energy out of their body with it, deflating it, balancing it, eliminating it. And as we do eliminate all that problem, as Kat was showing you, they get to a place where in many cases they're just sitting there and it's almost like, they're just almost like, huh? It's like neutral. It's like, how could that happen? How could it happen so much? I'll give you one example for mine, and I happen to love it because the reason that the original guy, Roger Callahan, created his thought field therapy process is because he had a woman that was being sent to him pro bono. He was a psychologist. And this woman had gone from therapist to therapist to therapist for years. And she had a phobia of water. And you put that much in a glass of water or in a bathtub or anything else like that, and literally she would freak out. Now, it's tough to have kids and be in California, and you can't take them to the pool, you can't take them to the beach, you can't do anything because she was so phobic. So he'd been working with her, and nothing was working. He'd be able to desensitize it a little bit, but she was still phobic. But he was studying with some energy medicine people. He had some kinesiology people, some Oriental medicine people, and they're studying this crazy thing called energy medicine. So he was thinking, well, what have I got to lose here? Nothing else has seemed to work. So it says, hey, he lives in Loretta Young's old mansion. She's an actress that some people may have heard of. But anyway, he said to us, hey, Maria, why don't we go out and sit by the pool and talk about this? And the minute he mentioned the pool, her eyes go, and her head starts going, oh my God, oh my God, I'm gonna die. He said, Maria, I'd like you, if you would, take your fingers, I want you to start tapping below your eyes. So look at me, tap below your eyes, okay? Think, we're going about the pool, think of me, tap below your eyes. Think of me, tap below your eyes. So she's looking at him, tap below her eyes, and all of a sudden she looks at him and she says, my God. And she starts to soften like that. She says, my God, it's gone. This is a woman who had had this issue for years. So anyway, he thought, oh my God, we're on to something. So yeah, he did, oh my God, too.
Well, he did. So, and just to check in, too, it was Gary Craig is actually not a psychologist, but it was a psychologist who referred to him.
This is Roger Callahan,
Roger Callahan,
who was a psychologist, who is the creator of thought field therapy, from which Gary Craig then got the process from thought field and brought it down to EFT.
Right. So this is really good to just kind of check and notice what the difference is.
So anyway, where I was leading with this, and I'm going to finish my story here, is that when I had learned the EFT process, I put out that I wanted to have a client to test this on because I love to get something new and test it. And I get a phone call from somebody who says, can you help me? My sister is having panic attacks and she can't even go to work. I said, well, can you get her to come in the office the next day? And it was Sunday she called me. And she said yes. Anyway, so she brought her in. Her name also, ironically, was Maria. And so Maria comes in and I said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how big is this panic attack? She goes like this. It's above the 10. So I had her doing the same process. We did maybe 4 or 5 rounds of it, probably over about 20 minutes worth of tappings, about all we did with it. And she got to where she was just feeling pretty darn good. So I gave her the process you're going to have. She took it home to continue to play with the stuff with it. And then I get a call from her sister a couple of days later because I was supposed to have another appointment with Maria coming in. And she says, Maria says she doesn't need to come in. Says she paid for 3 sessions. Can I have the other 2? So sure. So she came in and I did some stuff working with her for a period of time. And every once in a while we check back in. I say, how's Maria doing? And she says, it's the craziest thing ever. She says, Maria hasn't even had a blip on her radar. And she used to have these panic attacks, little ones every week, and major ones usually at least once or twice a month. She hadn't even had one now for 3 months. So it can be that powerful and sometimes make that life-changing a thing for it. So it's a pretty powerful process. So that's the story of Maria, and that's how Roger Callahan started out with Maria and then created a way that Gary Craig could then see the value of this thing. And being the scientist engineer type that he is, he was able to streamline it down to where you and I and everyone else have a process that they can do so rapidly and so wonderfully for so many people. So the original script.
Optional.
is optional. But we tap and continue tapping on that psychological reversal spot. We never call it that. We just call it the karate spot. And so they can tap on that spot. Nobody rubs above the heart anymore.
I do.
So well, some people do.
I
Okay,
do.
none of Gary Craig or none of his proteges do that part of it. And so then we do that part, the phrase for it, and it could be anything you want it to say as long as it's positive. The one that we happen to use is I fully and completely love and accept myself. So even though I'm feeling,
I have this problem.
even though I have this problem with my cat Dancer staring at me at the top of the stairs, I fully and completely love and accept myself. So even though he's hungry and he's looking at me wishing I'd feed him, I fully and completely love and accept myself. Hi, Dancer. So even though, and whatever your issue is, then I fully and completely love and accept myself. And you see another one's, and I now accept responsibility for my part of whatever happened. And that's something else we'll be covering, is some more optional pieces that we can add to that.
And, you know, I was wondering, because we do have a reference over here about rubbing above the heart space. In the original EFT, remember, it came from thought field therapy, where Rich was describing how Roger Callahan developed this. He was a psychologist in Los Angeles, California. Gary Craig came from the Palo Alto, California area. He was an engineer, and engineers like to shorten things. So he shortened the thought field therapy process into emotional freedom technique, also called EFT, which it's also been shortened again. But at the time that Gary Craig shortened it, he was referencing different parts: the top of the head, inside of eyebrows, outside, under the eyes, under the nose, on the chin, the collarbone, and under the arm. But he also had another spot, and that was where the side of the hand is a karate chop point. Well, the same meridians in the body that are here that deal with psychological reversal are also in that heart space. So
and
what we would
it's
do,
on both sides, by the way. It's above the heart on one side. It's also on the other side too.
yeah. So if you were to just put your fingers in, like on your throat, there's kind of like a little indentation there, kind of like, if you press it in, not too hard because it can do things with your voice, and take three fingers, like three fingers, and put it underneath that finger that's pressing that point, and go all the way over to the side of your arm. And then if you were to poke, there's kind of like a little indentation there. If you poke too hard, it's going to hurt. This is another reference point, which is of the old EFT method, which some people still use. And you would make a rotating motion there. This spot is the same as this one. So as Rich is saying, when he works with people, he doesn't do the older spot on here. And it's not actually a good place to go if a woman has had any kind of breast surgery, or if any lymph glands from a man or a woman have been removed, or heart surgery, because this, you know, a lot of times there's other things that are going on inside of here. So rather than going to that heart space, now we stick to the psychological reversal spot that's on the side of the hand, also known as the hi-ya karate chop point.
So when you actually get the paperwork that we'll have for you, it has nothing to do with, you know, having to do the other spots anymore. We'll only be looking at this one. This, again, is the only one that Gary Craig and the top people he has trained use anymore. So you won't even have to think or worry about the other one at all, because this is the one that they said is important.
Okay.
So an important emotional release step to reduce the energy stored within the emotions while remembering the problem or issue. Then we tap on those 6 positions we talked, and we've actually added now 1 above the top of the head. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So there's actually 8 spots that we'll be tapping, and we just do 3 rounds of it. Now, we're not going to tell them that people have been known to use this for prosperity and for winning things. So we won't get into that one. And, you know, if it happens to come out in class or something, hey, what can I say? But, you know, we probably wouldn't say that. So,
we do, actually. I mean, that's a really great story.
It'll be a good story.
You have to be in class to hear that story, though. So
we're
what is
done.
that? Ta-da! So you have hero
Heroes
status because the whole process worked out so well, huh?
Yeah. Now, to give you an idea of how far this thing can go, and I mean, I can't verify it other than I read the report that just came out, but there was a group of doctors, psychologists that went into Croatia.
Okay.
After a lot of the ethnic cleansing had happened, and they worked with a lot of these families where a lot of the children, where they had killed off one of each household. And they used the thought field therapy, EFT, kind of a combination of the two. And they worked with these people. And according to their study, they said they were able to help every single family they worked with. I'm not going to say it completely removed all their pain for the rest of their lives, but they were able to help them to get to where they felt far less pain, and they were far more functional with it. And they're using this process to do it. So there's all kinds of variations and things we can do with it. And on the weekend, or when we're together, when we actually practice it, we will talk about the surrogate tapping, and some things can be done for that, and some different processes adding to this a little bit for maybe like extreme traumas or some other pieces that happen into it. So there's some really, really powerful things with it. So I've been doing this process for over 25 years now, and I can tell you it is amazing. So you're going to like it a lot.
Wow.
Wow. Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Done.
So let's see, is there anything after this?
Questions and answers.
Okay, so at this point we can stop the share and we can ask people if they have any questions.
No, don't do that. Is that sure?
No.
Just do this one.
It's at the very top. It has that.
Up here, I see it.
Yeah, good job.
See, I'm learning all these cute little
job.
things with it. Good job.
job.
All right. I fully love it.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring you in and ask you to unmute yourself. And just double checking on the computer things here before my computer decides to do an upgrade. And I'm going to bring us all in. Okay, and I'd like to bring us all in like this. Okay, so feel free to ask any questions.
Any questions?
I have no question.
No questions? You have lots more time.
Well, that means if there's no question, I just did such an outstanding job that because they know everything about it. They're going to teach me. All right, so you'll teach me on Sunday. I love it.
Are there any are there any cons to the EFT?
Yes, there's a very serious con to the EFT, and that is that drug companies could go out of business.
Well, actually, when you ask about the con, there's one that Gary Craig said. Gary said there's absolutely a group of people he's found that this absolutely does not work on.
Oh.
So it's good to know about that.
Who are those?
People who won't use it. So if they don't use it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, there's really the biggest con that I have found, like I said, is that there's some people that this is kind of woo-woo. I mean, you get in there and all of a sudden you're going to have them tapping and doing stuff on their body, and it's something they haven't really done. The woman I mentioned, actually, she'd come in for a weight release problem, and I suggested she might have to exercise or do some movement. She says, well, I can't because I have chronic pain in my knees, they hurt bad, and my ankles and low back problems, etc. And she happened to have a particular belief system that was hard enough to even come and see a hypnotherapist, let alone all of a sudden I'm going to have her tapping and doing all kinds of incantations. But so she didn't really want to believe in it, but she was willing to do the process. And so she did. She's the one that came back 3 weeks later and says, I still don't understand it, still don't necessarily believe it, but my knees and ankles haven't hurt in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. By the way, just to end the story with it, about 3 weeks later after that, I got a call from her husband. And her husband said, I don't know what you've been doing to my wife. He says, well, whatever you've been doing seems to be working. I think I need to see you. So he came into. So even they can be skeptical sometimes, just like Eric said, it seems to work.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a really great process. But I do like the thought, David, that you asked that question about are there actually any cons to it? When you're using this particular process, there are some things you definitely want to be sure that you're paying attention to. If the person is near any kind of pesticides or poisons, this process won't be very effective. And if they try it and they're around those kind of things, they might be very disappointed. So we want to encourage people to drink lots of water.
Good to be hydrated when they do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to continue, because you will actually have brain changes going through the process. So being away from heavy colognes or perfumes, being away from pesticides or chlorine or bleach or ammonia. It's important to get that out of the way. And you can do this sort of thing actually in the shower by yourself, which I think is a great time to do it. And you can run through several series of things and you'll feel cleansed.
And if you're in the shower, you might as well sing it. Even though I'm
which is a little song.
It worked for Lionel Taylor, or Lionel Richie rather. Lionel Richie, he wrote all this stuff in the shower.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And as far as cons are concerned, Gary Craig never talked about any of these things, and he even used it sometimes for people that had the commercial allergies, to different solvents and different things with that. So he used it on clearing some of those. And he says, it works for almost everything that they've tried. By the way, they've worked with people, and we're not saying it's the be-all cure, but they've helped some people with cancer to have some remission with it.
Yeah.
I personally have worked with an MS guy that came in, and it was dramatic, the change that happened with the guy. So they've done it with MS, they've done it with cancer, they've done it with a number of other conditions, and had some pretty darn good results with it.
Sure, and one of the best things I think, well, not just the best because everything is good, but there's actually a program that helps out, people, the veterans, right? Because they've done all kinds of practices and experiments for just thousands of runs. And so there was a process that was developed that was very straightforward in a way of using EFT with veterans. And for those people who wanted to continue working with veterans, they would go through a series of tests, a little bit of training, and then you're authorized to use this with VA veterans. And so, they put you into a database, and then the veterans can call you whenever they need it. And this is important because this is for post-traumatic stress disorder, which can be very, very, very hard. Yeah. So this process is very successful for that.
And since you brought the veterans one, it's somewhere it's floating around in Gary Craig's stuff, but he has a series of videos where they actually invited him into the VA hospital or VA outpatient hospital in LA. And he got a chance to work with the chronic vets from the Vietnam War. And these are ones who nothing seemed to be quite able to get them out and functional again. And he was allowed to also film it, and they gave him 6 days to do it. And he worked with a number of them, but one of them he has, and the guy's also named happened to be Rich. But he had this guy who was so traumatized, he'd seen so many things like, babies blown apart, and his friends being, dismembered, and everything was happening to him, that he was, just basket case with it. But he got a chance to work with him. And what he said is that, he had to work with about 40 to 50 different issues with the guy, things he had seen. Wow. So he just did them one after a time and just cleared them. He says, think of this process like all of a sudden you're standing in the middle of a forest. He says, cutting one tree doesn't get you out of the forest. But you don't have to clear every tree in the forest either. You have to just clear enough to make a path. So he, in his case, did about 40 or 50 of it. And then as they filmed this guy, again, Rich, and things on this guy who couldn't even get out of the place. Whenever they did, he went to a restaurant and he always had to sit with his back against the wall because he was always so scared. He had been traumatized and he couldn't go over to the second floor in the hospital because he had a fear of heights, even inside a building. And so they did the process with him, and all of a sudden he's telling a story, and it sounded like somebody narrating a movie. He's sitting there and says, oh yeah, he says, we were flying over the Mekong Delta in a helicopter, and all of a sudden it was night, and he saw the tracer bullets coming towards the helicopter, and all of a sudden they hit the plane, and the plane flies or is blown out of the air and stuff on it. We're all falling down and scrambling away and stuff like that. And he's talking almost like it's in third person. And he tells the story, and then they talk about the fact he went to restaurants. He sat right in the middle of the restaurant. He wasn't worried about being against the wall. And at one point, the one that blew him all the way, and again, they used the same exact technique for all of them, is the guy's up on the 6th floor of the VA hospital, and he's out looking over the fire escape, and he's talking to some of his buddies, and going, hi, buddies, how you doing? This guy couldn't even go past the 2nd floor. So it's amazing what he was able to do with some of the veterans, and that's one of the reasons why this is allowed to be a technique used with the veterans. So pretty amazing stuff, and it's been so tested and by all across the country and even around the world now. So wow.
Has it helped? Has it helped the frog?
Well, let's see.
Bring him on the screen so that they can see him.
You notice before he was up there, his hands were protecting himself, and look, his hands are all the way down now. He's feeling so comfortable. He's loosey-goosey. Okay. Yeah, Wes, it's a silly frog, I know, but we love him.
Well, he definitely is kind of like a really great demonstration because he's got several different layers, as you can see, of emotions. And if you want to remember this thought of this creature here who has various levels of emotion like this, different colors, it'll stick in your mind.
Yeah, and he's very flexible.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. You ready to go? Are you ready to go? Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right.
So once again, please read your packets. Our intention this evening was to give you a nice, introduction to this. When you are in class, we will be demonstrating this process, and you'll have an opportunity to practice it with colleagues and friends. And do remember to remind us to tell you the story, amazing story of a doctor who was in our class who took this class and he learned EFT, and then they said, what would happen if we used EFT for this? Remember to ask us this question, and we will tell you the amazing thing that happened. Shocked him.
And he was also a reasonably skeptical person.
Yeah.
So the whole process.
It was pretty wonderful.
It was cute. It was cute.
It was pretty wonderful.
All right.
So at this point, I want to just say what we're going to do is we're going to stop the recording, and then we're going to have a couple minutes for the class. But I want to say thank you very much for being here tonight. And we know that you're going to love this process and you're going to use it for yourself as well as for other people. Yeah. It's called Emotional Freedom Technique, or it's EFT. So let's see, do we have anything else on the slide? On the slide presentation before we go away? Do we cover everything there?
Well, you had me, I thought, let's see, you got to go back down your share.
Yeah.
All right, let's see,
Yeah.
I'll bring it back up.
I'm
doing
well.
very good. And I'll share this with everybody.
You're doing very well. Go down to that. There you go.
Okay, we tapped, and something came up. What sounds like?
Oh, you could just click on the little red dot there.
Yeah.
And that would be a little red dot.
Okay, Vero, tap on everything. Ta-da! Look at there.
Okay.
There's and there's me with my warm cup of something.
Well, absolutely, a nice warm cup of something. So we want to thank you for being a part of the class. And
I know where that is. That's at the Telecom Bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Know that you can snap scenes of issues from your life and from other people's life. You can check in on the energy level. And when emotions get to the point where you feel like you just can't stand it anymore, there is a process called Emotional Freedom Technique that can help you release the flooded emotions, and then you can go on and let go of that. And as we go further on, you can always reach us for private sessions as well as attending the class. And of course, you can reach us at Apositiva for more possibilities. Just simply call us at 503-525-0595 or check in on our website at apositiva.com. Yeah, is that it? Is that all our presentation? Or
What are the possibilities? Let's see.
I don't know.
It looks like yes.
That's it. We can stop the share and we can let these people go. So stop the share at the very top. That's right. You're doing really well.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right.
Good job. All right, everybody. Have a
Bye,
wonderful
y'all.
evening.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Saturday at
Deeply
9:29 and or before.
All right. Bye, everyone. It was great to see you, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.